Hello, it's Arminder. Welcome to the Rum Revival. In this video, I'm highlighting some newly released and newly announced rums. Now, usually I do these kind of videos on a monthly basis, but since I took some time off, I'll be covering rums from like around mid to late November to now. And we're going to start off with UK independent bottler Bristol Spirits. Now, they've been in the game since 1993 in the UK, but are only now just being imported here into the US, which of course is very exciting because more bottlers means more great options for us rum drinkers. And what I really like about Bristol is, they do something a little different. Like most independent bottlers release things at cask strength. They tend to release things under 50% ABV, like around 40 to 47%. And look, I know the rum nerd in you might scoff at that. Like, why would I be interested in anything under 50%? And, I've been in that mindset too in the past. But I just think there's something nice about a rum being kind of drinkable and sessionable right out of the bottle, right? Not having to like mess around with water or anything like that. And the great thing is that's what Bristol does, but there's still plenty of other independent bottlers that will offer you cask strength releases, but this kind of makes them stand out, and I kind of like that. Now, I first got to try some of their rums a couple years ago at the rum show in the UK, and everything I had was really enjoyable, and there were a few that really stuck with me. Now, for their initial lineup here in the US, we've got 7 rums. First up is the Caribbean Collection. This is a blend of young rums from Trinidad distillers. By young, I think maybe around 3 years or so. I do know it's bottled at 40% ABV and it's kind of Bristol's kind of standard entry mixing rum. Now, it is priced around $50, and given all those stats, it is a bit on the pricey side. So there's all that, but you do get like a nice pink label. Next up is the finest Mauritius cane juice rum. Now, if you're not familiar, Mauritius is a small island country off the coast of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. This is a unaged, calm distilled cane juice rum made at Labourdonnais distillery. Hopefully I pronounced that right. They've been producing rum since 2006 at their estate there in the north part of Mauritius, and then this release is bottled at 43% ABV and priced around $45. Next up is another rum from Labourdonnais. It's the Bristol Labourdonnais 11 year. This is a calm distilled cane juice rum that's first aged in American oak and then some amount of time in ex-cognac casks. Altogether, it's aged 11 years in the UK and then bottled at 47% ABV, and this one's priced around $135. Next up is the Reserve Rum of Haiti. It's distilled by the folks that make Barbados. It's a pot still rum distilled in 2004 and then bottled in 2022, making it around 18 years. Now, I believe it's aged maybe around 5 or 6 years in Haiti, and then the rest of the time in the UK. It's bottled at 47% ABV and priced around $150. Next up is the Jamaica Trelawney County. Now, this is a 12-year Hamden rum, which tells you it's wild fermented and pot distilled. Now, the label itself does not mention which mark or marks it is, but various retailers online specify it's DOK, so let's go with that. Now, it's bottled at 47.5% ABV and priced around $160. Next up is a Nicaragua 18-year. This is a calm distilled rum from an undisclosed distillery in Nicaragua, though presumably it's from the folks that make Florida Caña, since that's the only major rum distillery out there. It's aged 18 years and bottled at 47% ABV and priced around $135. Lastly is the Venezuela 12-year. This is a calm still rum from distillery Sofa, which is actually just Santa Teresa. It's aged a full 12 years in Venezuela, and this is bottled at 47% ABV and priced at around $90. And this one was one of the rums that I had at the rum show that really impressed me. It tasted better than anything I've had from Santa Teresa. So I'm very excited to get my hands on this particular release. Now, there is a great interview by the folks at the Rumcast. They interviewed John Barrett, the owner of Bristol Spirits. Definitely check out that podcast. I'll link to it down below. Next up, we have 3 limited releases from 10 to 1. Now, altogether, these releases make up the 18-year Reserve Cask Collection. Each one is a single cask release, all bottled at 46% ABV and priced at $200, which does seem kind of pricey for 46%, right? Like it, in a way, kind of makes the Bristol stuff feel like a better deal. Anyways, we've got a Jamaica release, a Trinidad, and a Barbados. No information on the distillery or the marks for any one of these 3. Now, each one had about 325 bottles released. They're already sold out on 10 to 1's website, but there are a few retailers throughout the country that have some bottles. Next up, we have the newest release in Foursquare's exceptional cask selection series, Equidem. Now, first and foremost, Equidem is a Latin word for truly or certainly or indeed. Now, as always, this is a pot calm still blend of rums from Barbados. In this case, they're aged 14 years in a mix of ex-bourbon casks and ex-black muscat casks. Ex-black muscat, that's a very hard phrase to say. Black muscat is a red grape varietal that can be used to make wine and fortified wines. These particular casks came from a French producer, so in this case it's French wine. This release is bottled at 61% ABV and priced around $150. Now, speaking of wine finishes, next up we have 3 new Kila releases from KoHana out there on the island of Oahu in Hawaii. Now, their Kila releases are all cask strength aged cane juice rums that are often finished in different cask types. Now, these particular releases are all wine finishes. We have the Amontillado finish that was made from the Kaioloa cane varietal, the Oloroso one that was made from the Maheula varietal, and the Madeira finish from the Kea varietal. Hope I didn't butcher any of that, but I'm pretty sure I did. Now, if you are interested in any one of these, you can buy them on KoHana's website. They sell them for $75 for a 375 milliliter bottle. I've yet to really see them at any other retailer's site, but they might be out there. Just have to look and see. Next up from Grandeur, we have their Cane Harvest. Now, this is an unaged rum from Panama. Now, considering the name and the fact that it's unaged, you might think it's made from cane juice, but in fact, it's made from molasses. There does feel like a bit of a disconnect with the name, but beyond that, I think it's great that we are getting another unaged molasses rum. We got a bunch of them last year, and I really liked them. To get another one so early in the year, I think that's great. Now, this one is made at the Central Industrial Chiricahua Distillery on the western coast of Panama. It's made from estate-grown molasses that goes through a 36-hour fermentation. This particular release, the rum in here, is a heavy distillate from a calm still, and it's bottled at 48% ABV. No information yet on pricing. I think it hasn't quite yet released, but should hopefully soon. Next up, we have independent bottler Raising Glasses. Now, at the end of last year, they released a bunch of rum, some of which I've mentioned kind of here or there in my last couple of videos, but I wanted to make sure I included them all here in this kind of new release format. First up is their Her Majesty, which is their single cask release of a 5-year-old privateer Queen Share rum. This particular rum was first aged about a year or so in American oak, and then 3 years and 10 months in a first fill New Riff bourbon cask. Bottled at 58% ABV and it's priced at $88. Now, we're normally Raising Glasses stuff comes in 375s. This particular release comes in a 750 milliliter bottle. Next up is the Filumena, a rum from Romero Distillery out in Calgary in Canada. Now, Romero has been making rum since 2018 and apparently is Canada's largest rum producing distillery. Now, this is a pot and calm still rum aged around 1 or 2 years in Woodford bourbon casks and then 3+ years in Oloroso sherry casks. It's bottled at 58.1% ABV and priced at $40. And for those of you that are curious, Filumena was a real person and apparently the only woman to be hanged in Alberta. Next up is the Jablesse. I think that's how it's pronounced, but I could be totally wrong. This release, heads up, has already sold out on Raising Glasses website, though there will be a small amount of it available in California fairly soon-ish. This is a 21-year-old single cask rum from Trinidad Distillers Limited, the folks that make Angostura. This is the TML mark, and it was distilled in 2003. It was aged 15 years in Trinidad and then another 6 years in the UK. It's bottled at 61.4% ABV, comes in a 375 milliliter bottle, and it's priced at $80. Now, I have a bottle of this, and it's real good stuff. If you tried the Velier Flag Series Trinidad from 2023, very much playing in that same space. In fact, I think they are the same mark, I believe. What I haven't done is like a side-by-side, but I think that's a kind of a good idea, and maybe I'll do that after shooting this video. Next up is the Kyrie 2. It's made from cane juice from Vietnam that was frozen, sent to Amsterdam, and then distilled by the now defunct Rummy Club distillery. Now, the original Kyrie release was from last year. It was unaged, but this version is aged just 3 months in a rum cask. How much will 3 months of aging affect the rum? That's a very good question. I'd like to know. It is bottled at 61.1% ABV and priced at $40 for $375. Speaking of sequels, we have the Pelee's Fury 2. Like the first Pelee's Fury, this is a Grande Rome from Le Gallienne Distillery in Martinique. If you're not familiar with the style, they're calm distilled molasses rums that go through long fermentations with the use of dunder, so we're getting these really high ester, big, bold rums. Now, with this second release here, it's aged 10 months in a Barbados rum cask. And just like with the Kyrie 2, I'm curious to see what a little bit of aging does to the rum. Now, if you haven't seen my end of year video, the first Pelee's Fury was my favorite unaged molasses rum of last year. So trying this one is absolutely very high on my list. This particular release is bottled at 61.5% ABV and priced at $40. Next up, we have a new brand and producer from the Caribbean island of Dominica. This is Rosalie Bay, and this is their first release here in the States. It's called Dominica Single Rum Batch 1. Now, Rosalie Bay is a non-profit distillery, more on that in a little bit. They make cane juice rums, and this particular release is unaged and pot distilled. It's bottled at 48% ABV and priced at around $87 for a 750. Now, if you're curious about the whole non-profit thing, well, the cool thing is that all the revenue that the distillery makes goes to the conservation of sea turtles, the protection of whales, and all sorts of other great stuff in Dominica and around the Caribbean. Not that you need an excuse to drink rum, but if you did, that's a hell of a good reason. And then lastly, from independent baller Rolling Fork, we have a pretty cool limited release. This is Wisdom of Age, which is a blend of unaged pot still rums from Hampden Estate out there in Jamaica. Now this blend is 80% the L Rock mark, which is the third lowest rum in terms of ester count from Hampden. Then the next 10% is Sea Diamond Age, which is actually the second highest rum in terms of ester count. And the last 10% is DOK, the highest ester count of Hampden's rums. Now it's not quite bottled at 63% ABV like all those other unaged overproof Jamaican rums. This instead is bottled at 58.5% ABV, and it'll cost you $50 for a 750. Now, I've had a decent amount of this rum so far, and I'm digging it. It's a drier take on that kind of rum. And in terms of cocktails, I think it does particularly well with Campari, both in a rum firewalker and a Kingston Negroni. Now, my understanding is that this is a limited release with only around 240 bottles. Now, some of this blend is actually aging in different casks right now, and Rolling Fork will release some of that over the next coming years. All right, that's it for this video, and those are the newly released and newly announced rums from the last couple of months. I'm curious, is there anything that I mentioned that you plan on getting? Let me know by leaving a comment down below. And if you're interested in supporting this channel, then check out my Patreon page. I have tons of exclusive content there. And I just added a new perk to all the tiers, which is access to the Rum Revival Discord server. So if you want to chat with other rum drinkers and rum lovers, that's the place to go. That's it for this video. Catch y'all next time. Cheers.